It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take 5 time. That's Logan Paulsen. I am Craig Hoffman. This is the 5-minute edition of Take Command that never actually goes 5 minutes. But, Logan, let's talk Hail Marys. Why? I mean, why would we? Why wouldn't we? After what happened on Sunday, I want to talk Hail Mary strategy, end of game, end of half strategy. And before we get to the end of the game and some choices that Chicago made and that Washington made that obviously end in Washington's favor, I want to talk about the end of the first half because the Commanders get the ball like inside their own 10-yard line again, because they always got the ball inside their own 10-yard line in this game. And then they get the ball out towards midfield. They do a really nice job, get some completions, move the ball, use their timeouts well. And then with 8 seconds to go, the Bears decide to run like a picket fence situation, which is kind of the correct. I don't even know if you consider that one picket fence, whatever the sideline defense is, because Washington's trying to get a little bit closer for a field goal. And the Bears are like, we're not going to let you get towards the sideline. You have no timeouts. And so Jaden just throws the ball out of bounds over everyone's head, which is the correct play as coach. Washington then decides, as I asked Dan Quinn after, he's like, I didn't want to expose Jaden to a hit. They hand the ball to Austin Eckler. He runs for 29 yards, messes up all the statistics, and then they go in the half. My question for you, sir, is if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, or if you're Cliff Kingsbury, and you see that, do you put an automatic audible in? And this is very Madden-esque of me, but do you put an automatic audible in that in Madden they would call it goalpost, which is everyone run to the middle of the field and let's just throw a Hail Mary there because it was within range. All the Bears players were to the sideline. There's no risk of a hit because the Bears literally rushed one dude, which I don't think I've ever seen before. And can you steal a touchdown there?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to run. I'm going to answer this question. I know you're kind of like tongue-in-cheeking this a little bit, but I'm going to answer this as serious as I possibly can. So I don't know if I want them all running to the middle of the field. I want to see if I can distribute the field down there a little bit. So I don't know if I'm going to run 4 verticals, you know what I'm saying? But something to get those 4 kind of quarters players to distribute. The other thing in just watching it is when you run this picket fence, the middle of the field is wide open. And you're doing that on purpose, obviously, right, because you want to keep them from getting the time. The thing that I've always kicked around in this scenario is instead of running that, you could check to this, obviously, is you run that backside dig like you always do. But instead of running the corner by the number 2, you have him also kind of run like a delayed cross. You throw the ball to Terry. The safety would attack Terry. He would then pitch it to the guy coming back across underneath, like a deep hook and ladder, and I think that would give you a better opportunity to score than any kind of Hail Mary. Because, again, it's not like a true prevent defense where there's 12 guys back there. It does have like a semblance of quarters coverage.
This is why I think it's so interesting, is because some defenders have taken themselves out of the play because they're just defending like 5-yard sideline.
Yes.
And so how do you take advantage of that when there's no pass rush and you can actually have a numbers advantage down the field? And that's kind of what I was wondering. I was like, do you just send everybody to the middle and then throw a jump ball? Or are you better off just trying to distract some of those guys, like you said, and whether it's a hook and ladder or whatever? Are you better off, like, I know they don't want to expose Jaden to the hits, but like, should they have just run a QB draw and let the lineman get out in front? Like, I feel like next time that comes up, Cliff will have something that is not throw the ball out of bounds when we have so much field space and we're playing 11 on 8 or 11 on 7 because 4 of their guys are just protecting the sideline 10 yards in it.
Yeah, and I'm sure I would assume they probably have something. The other one that Tampa Bay used to run is they used to have the quarterback run a draw. He'd sprint to the middle of the field. So they'd the one guy would get blocked. They'd run the lineman up to the next guy. He'd sprint to the middle of the field. You'd have the whole team converge. And when he got to about 15 or 20 yards down the field, depending on where he was met, they had leaked out a receiver that had stayed kind of in that 5-yard area. He would turn and just lateral it. And when I was playing in Atlanta, Tampa Bay ran that. And I've never seen a play so wide open my whole life, but the receiver dropped it. So there are ways and there are things people do in that situation when you get a true picket fence defense on the sideline that I think could be very effective. I think it just depends on how aggressive you want to be in the situation, obviously. But I personally, just looking at this structure, and I think this is how most teams play it, like I do think some type of like deep dig to the hook and ladder is not a bad idea, because then you don't expose your quarterback to a hit. You put that kind of deep quarters player in a little bit of a situation, and I think it gives you a better completion percentage opportunity and a better chance to score than like a true Hail Mary. But I do like the idea, especially because you want to score points. If you want to score a touchdown, like why? And we rep end of game scenario, end of half scenario so much, like this wouldn't be too challenging, especially if you really liked your opportunity with the play.
Yeah, I just like, there's so much space. How do you take advantage of it? You did just think of, remind me of my other wacky Hail Mary idea. Ready for this one?
Yeah.
And then we'll get to the actual one that happened. Basically, you roll out to the right, because and then the mob follows the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
You can see this on the all 22 of the actual Hail Mary is like everyone's kind of setting up that diamond to the right as Jaden rolls to the right. Now everyone's going back to the left. Could you roll all the way to the right? You'd have to be like at the 50 to pull this off, because
Right.
it becomes a ridiculously long throw. But basically, roll to the right, get everyone at the right, and then kind of understand as soon as the quarterback starts to wind up, have one dude, your fastest player, just sprint to the other corner of the end zone and throw away from the mob and see if you can time it up. That's my other wacky Hail Mary idea.
I don't hate that idea. And there was a period of time where they would do that. It was almost like a leak. They'd run all four guys across, and then they'd kind of leak the guy underneath.
Or could you leak Eckler, because he was in the protection?
Yeah,
Could you leak
yeah,
Eckler out the back and
That's exactly right. You kind of have him like on a different level or in a different position by himself. And I've seen that work. The problem is that in those play executions is the throw has to be extremely accurate, and you're throwing it 60 yards in the air. And so
it's a Hail Mary, so it's not like you're passing on something that's high odds.
Yeah, the other one is that they hit them early and then they get tackled short. But again, like I do think there are different ways to attack this, like as opposed to just like mush it up and then like go jump. I think it's effective, obviously. I think someone I was on the Junkies the other day, and one of the guys was like, "Oh yeah, it's a 9% effective play," which is way higher than I would have thought. But I also think
not a 9% effective play. There's no way.
That's what he said. He said he asked Alexa. But I don't know. We should look it up. We should do a little research on that.
All right,
because I think it's more effective than people would like to admit, perhaps, especially because you don't run them that often. I mean, shoot, Aaron Rodgers hits like 2 a year. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? Come on. But anyway, I do think like some of those alternative methods, like one of my favorites was, who was it? It was Kansas City when Tyreek Hill was still there versus Dallas. Do you remember this one, Craig? Where they threw like a screen underneath to him, like a crossing route, and they had all the receivers blocking kind of like a kick return style. Yeah. I like those, especially end of half scenarios, way better, because if he catches it, you have a convoy in front of him. You've at least completed the pass. Now go score a touchdown. I think some of those ideas, some of that innovation in that end of half scenario is super important.
Yeah, if you have Tyreek Hill, that's
it's
a
different.
better option than according to Google's AI, a Hail Mary pass is considered extremely unlikely to be successful, with most estimates placing the success rate at less than 1%.
Wow.
This story
Where do you
from
get
ESPN,
the 9%? The Junkies, not known for their research, apparently.
Well, look, the Junkies have been very successful for a long time. To say that they are not known for their research is an accurate statement. And you know who the first person to tell you that, or the first four guys to tell you that would be? The Junkies. The next three would be their producers.
Less than 1%? That's pretty low.
There's a 2019 ESPN.com story that has about 1 in every 12, allegedly. So that's not terrible. It's not 9%.
It's close, though. Because one would be 10. 1 out of 10 would be 10, right?
Yeah, so maybe that's where he got it. Maybe it's close-ish. It's probably 8 something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Math.
somewhere between less than 1% and 9%. We'll go with that. Anyway, the point is it's unlikely. It becomes far more likely, though, if you can actually throw the ball far enough to reach close to the end zone. It gets to the 2-yard line where it gets tipped back into the end zone. Oddly specific reference there. Why the hell did the Bears let the Commanders get that free 15 yards?
I think it's, again, like I think that's, so when I've done that before, I think we talked about this in the post game. If you have free access and there's a certain amount of time left on the clock, I want to say it's 8 seconds. If you have 8 seconds left, you can run a play and get out of bounds.
Right.
It's an automatic adjustment for the receivers. You don't even call it. It's an automatic. So you might have Hail Mary called, and if you have free access and there's 8 seconds left, you run the out. And a lot of teams will do that just because for exactly the same reason we talked about. So let's say we're in picket fence and there's 8 seconds left, and we run Hail Mary and you only have 2 guys back there. Like, the advantage favors Washington. So just to kind of cover all of your to mitigate risk of you running a Hail Mary before the last play, they get everybody back there early.
But it's they're at their own 35. Like, Jaden's got a cannon, but you need Joe Milton or Anthony Richardson at that point. Like, he can't throw the ball that far. So like, that's what I don't understand. And I guess Caleb was on the sidelines like yelling at dudes like, get up, get up, get up. Matt Eberflus was like, that play, is not the difference in the game. And it's like, yeah, it literally was. That's what I don't understand is I get that if you're at the 50 already and you want to make that throw, or if you're like, hey, go ahead, 15 yards, doesn't matter, you can already reach it. But they went from out of Hail Mary range to in Hail Mary range. And to me, that is a completely indefensible decision by Matt Eberflus.
And I think that's a really good example to credit Dan Quinn, of how on the details he is. Because understanding that you can get a play called with 8 seconds left is something that is really important. And I would be willing to wager some money that the Bears staff was not aware that they could get that executed like that. You know what I'm saying? That they didn't understand the timing. And I think if he says that,
that's their jobs.
But it's so interesting. Like, when you're in game, if you don't talk about it in the week, you don't think about it. It's just a thing. If you don't rep it and don't talk about it and you're not about it, like, I will say this: when I was in Atlanta, Dan, we talked situational football every Wednesday. We had a situational thing we discussed. Like, look at this. This came up versus whoever, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing the Broncos. And look at this end of game scenario. Like, this guy right here does not know that we can get a play called and get it spiked in 12 seconds. Like, if we're on our stuff, we can get this done. And they ended up missing a field goal because they didn't go for this extra 5 yards. And, like, he's about it. He talks about it. He thinks about it a lot. And I'm sure it's just built off of that, because these are the types of situations where it shows up and it's the difference in winning and losing.
And hey, look who won, the team that was on it. All right, that's enough dumping on Chicago. We look ahead to New York tomorrow here on Take Command. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you then.